Amtrak's Mardi Gras service is here. On August 18th, Amtrak ran their first revenue service of the Mardi Gras Service, which links New Orleans, Louisiana with Mobile, Alabama, with 4 intermediate stops. The 145-mile trip takes about 3 hours and 45 minutes, passing along the coastline of the Gulf Coast for pretty much the entire journey. Today, we'll talk a little bit about the route and why its creation is a big deal for American intercity rail service. Welcome back to D-Transit. Today, we're looking at Amtrak's newest line, the Mardi Gras Service. Stretching 145 miles, the line links important cities along the Gulf Coast of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, and links the biggest city in Louisiana with the second biggest city in Alabama. The line's history reaches back to former Amtrak routes that existed along the same line. Apart from a few miles of track near New Orleans, the majority of the infrastructure is owned and maintained by the freight railroad CSX, which is responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of the line. The predecessor of the Mardi Gras service was the Gulf Coast Limited, which ran the same route from 1984 to 1985, and then from 1996 to 1997. Despite popularity, the line was first terminated in 1985 due to a withdrawal of funds from the state of Mississippi. The second iteration of the route opened in 1996, but yet again, due to no state support, the line was forced to be terminated in 1997. The physical right-of-way was utilized for a further 8 years, though, as the long-distance Sunset Limited line, which ran from New Orleans to Los Angeles, California, was extended into Florida, making it Amtrak's longest and only coast-to-coast line. In 2005, though, all service on CSX's rail line was shut down when Hurricane Katrina ravaged the area and caused debilitating damage to the line. The Sunset Limited was then cut short to New Orleans and continues to operate between Louisiana and California to this day. The line remained unsalvageable and without maintenance until nearly 12 years later, when a working group of the FRA submitted a report to Congress for the restoration of service. The FRA then issued a $33 million grant to restore service by fixing tracks, facilities, stations, and signals, and was matched by funds from the states of Louisiana and Mississippi and the city of Mobile. In 2021, Amtrak negotiated a deal with CSX to restore service along the line, while Amtrak would pay for any repairs. An additional $178 million in grants was used by Amtrak to build new stations and continue improving the facilities along the route. The corridor was additionally entered into the Corridor Identification and Development, or Corridor ID, program, which puts the line into the scope of the federal government for future funding and support. In 2025, the FRA awarded $21.1 million for operating costs, and after a few delays, the service began on August 18, 2025. Inaugural day rides of the service sold out within 24 hours of the tickets going on sale, showing its incredible popularity. 2 daily round trips run by Amtrak's GE Genesis or Siemens Charger locomotives and their Bud Don't Break Amfleet 1 passenger cars will link the Gulf Coast, with the potential for extensions further into Alabama if the state decides to participate in funding. The return of service along the New Orleans-Mobile corridor has been more telling than just a new rail service. After the rail corridor was shut down in 2005 by Hurricane Katrina, there was very little hope of any federal support to recover rail service along the line. Historically, Republican-strong states like Alabama and Mississippi don't often choose to back publicly funded passenger rail projects, which is noted in Amtrak's network. The states with the most Amtrak lines, like California, Illinois, New Jersey, and New York, are more democratic and more urban. But the reluctance to fund rail in Republican states isn't always their own fault. These states tend to be more rural areas with extremely low density, making even simple transit like buses unnecessary and pretty ridiculous. An absence of this transit means that they don't know the usefulness of transit, because they've never had a reason to use it. Their cars suffice, and probably do better than mass transit would with that density. Putting it simple, they might not even be aware of what they're missing out on, especially when it comes to intercity rail. One man has been notably aware of this since 2005. Republican Senator Roger Wicker has represented the state of Mississippi in the United States Senate since 2007, and was a representative for the 1st Congressional District for the decade before that. Since the fall of the rail line to Hurricane Katrina, he has been a notable supporter of the return of the rail corridor. In 2015, he created the Gulf Coast Working Group of the FRA, which went on to fund the initial $33 million grant for the line in 2017. In 2022, Senator Wicker also helped funnel an additional $178 million, which made the return of rail service all but complete. On the side, he was also one of the Republican members who helped pass President Joe Biden's Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, otherwise known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, which provided historic funding to Amtrak and other nationwide infrastructure projects. Senator Wicker has also been a publicly present member of the corridor's renewal, appearing at many of its press events and construction visits. Senator Wicker has been a stout example of the fact that passenger rail is not a partisan subject. Of course, not every city needs a sprawling subway system that uproots all of the residents, but funding like this to get regular intercity service can be transformational for the lives of residents in the area, as well as the economies of the cities along the way, both for commerce and for tourism. More than anything, it could be the example these states need to see that makes them realize the importance of frequent passenger rail and how beneficial it can be to everyone. And that brings us to the end of this D-Transit video. If you'd like to see more content on Amtrak's growing foothold in the daily lives of Americans across the country, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Comment your thoughts on the new Mardi Gras service and how you think it will perform in the next 6 months. Thanks for watching today's video, have a great day, and I'll see you next week.